Good afternoon. Just wanted to recap the past few days of what's going on in my mind and some of my past few trades. So as far as my trades go, I had pretty much my biggest percentage loss ever on this random biotech, VNRX. So we've been seeing biotechs run all week, and my references were CRDF, CPIX, and CMRX. They all dropped a PR after hours. They ended up gapping up the next morning. But so I saw this biotech had a PR after hours, and I bought it around here at 75. And originally I was risking 69. And it ended up dumping kinda, but then it held right here at around 64. And I'm like, okay, like I could deal with that. But then this happened, and at this point I'm down quite a bit, on 20 cents on a 75-cent stock, so I'm down like 25%. But I bag held essentially all the way until up here around 65. So I was able to kind of recover some of my position, but all in all, this trade was just not good. I've been talking about my past few videos of just like really focused on like what's in play. And I think that's helped me, but then also I have to find the balance between, okay, playing what's in play, but also making sure the risk reward is there, making sure that I'm just not playing something random. And with this one, I also got lazy with my process. I didn't really dive deep into the other three tickers that I mentioned before and how they reacted. And if I did, I may have waited until here, 64, 65, to enter. Because if we look at all of them, CIPX, this one dipped quite a bit. If you bought near the top, 220 to 180. CRDF did this kind of end pattern where it went all the way back to where it came from. And CMRX also had a pretty big dip if you bought kind of near here, 230, and went all the way down to 180. So all of them did have some pretty decent dips after having these kind of massive spikes, but I didn't look at that. Another thing is with VNRX, they actually dropped the PR in the morning, and I didn't even notice that. I just saw the date, and I was like, oh, they dropped a PR. They dropped it in the morning. So that would have been when to get in, but there was no volume, so it wouldn't have even popped up in the scan. But so I didn't notice that. And then, the daily chart on this was not really good. Like, there's just no history of this thing running. But the 5 million volume that it did after hours was like more than the majority of the entire year. So I'm like, okay, like that's pretty significant. But it was only 5 million. So that was kind of another thing of like, the volume wasn't great. And then the cherry on top is that it's a biotech. And we see this all the time, like these just crazy spikes and then crash back down to where they come from. And, while biotech were in play, they're their own beast, and I have to be careful. I can't just buy near this 30% 5-minute candle on a biotech overnight. It just doesn't make any sense. And then if you bought here, you would have made 15%. It was low volume. It was only like 1 million in volume, but kind of you're still playing the theme, right? Biotechs are there. It dropped a PR after hours, but you have really good risk reward. So the moral of the story with this one was just like lazy process, not balancing the line between like what's in play and then making sure it's still good risk reward and still kind of makes sense. and just kind of getting stung by a biotech. I mean, you know, this big loss will leave a scar, right? And that scar will leave a memory of like, okay, I'm got to be very careful with biotechs, right? I have to be very, very careful with biotechs. So that was that. But then on the same day, I ended up buying AMPG, quantum ticker, dropped a quantum PR, and the play was right here, but I was at work where it double bottomed. But then when it consolidated and broke too, I kind of considered it its own play because we've been seeing these things run after hours. And the first one was ALLAES because this after hours run happened the day before. I mean, we've been seeing GXAI on this multi-day run and doing things after hours. And we've just been seeing the quantum sector be on fire, right? You know, in general, and then especially after hours. We've been seeing these after hours runners. So I really wasn't nervous at all. I was pretty confident, ironically. Even though I bought up here, I just considered it its own play, even though I know the true play was here. What time was it? Yeah, it was right at 4:20. So I'm like, okay, like it's just kind of its own play in after hours. And then I ended up selling at pre-market highs or day highs. Or no, I sold at 250. I sold at 250. So yeah, right here from 210. And 210 was terrible. I even had an opportunity to kind of get in like around this like 190-ish area. And I could even got in at like 205. I don't know. I don't remember how 210 happened. My entries are just horrendous in general, and I need to work on that, which goes to my next trade. But I was really happy about this trade because I had took a really big loss in the morning, and then you know I moved on. I diverted to this, which is again something that's in play. You know, I've been seeing them run after hours. Quantum's been hot, and I made a trade, right? And I actually sold at highs. So, and this actually ended up eliminating my loss from the morning and some. I actually was up a couple percent points after this. I made 17% on this and lost like 13.5 on the first one. Then today, I was playing a third day surge on CMRX. Was playing this because we saw a third day surge, a great one from LDTC. So again, something that's in play. Really, I thought technically this was almost perfect. I would have really liked if this didn't happen. This kind of spike and then consolidating up here. I would have loved for it to consolidate around here. But nonetheless, it was holding its gains. It was really big volume day one, low volume day two, just like Roland said the other day. And I was super interested in this. You know, another thing is LDTC dropped a PR. Well, they didn't drop it, but they had an analyst rating saying buy. This one also had the same analyst PR of buy. So I was super interested in this one. And yet again, I had a terrible entry. So I've never really played third day surges before. So when I woke up and it was really low volume, I'm like, okay, I don't know what to do because LDTC had decent volume pre-market. And then it just shot up. And from the few 3-day surges I've seen, they just kind of shoot right from the open. But this one had low volume, and I'm like, well, I have to do, right? Like I kind of want to wait for the volume to come in. I don't want to be caught in a low volume, whatever. I didn't get in till 319 up here because I just bought the first 5-minute candle, essentially, because it had such massive volume pre-market. You know, it went from 15,000 to 800,000. And I'm like, okay, this is going to work, right? This is going to pop off. So I'm like, okay, you know, it's up near high. It was terrible though. Like I was just looking for $4. But once again, I hesitated. Not the play was right here. I mean, at 305 or even right here. And I was in front of it watching it and I saw these perks, but the volume was still super low. So I'm like, well, how much weight do I put into these perks? But then again, I got caught up in this mess of like buying up here. And even then, it didn't have to be 319. It could have been, I mean, this is a 5-minute candle. I was watching it. There could have been times where I got in, but like, I didn't know what to do. I kind of buckled or whatever. And then as you see here, it kind of failed, but not really, right? It's holding 3. And that leads to my overall point of like how important entry is. I'm always so scared to buy here when it's low volume because I'm like, well, what if it fails? You know, what if it's just this low volume garbage and it fails? And let's say it kind of dumps at the open because it's low volume, right? So then I wait for volume to come in. But then when I wait for volume to come in, the play is over. So it's one of my biggest kind of things right now is this volume thing of like, I miss a lot of plays or I have bad entries because I'm wait for the volume to come in because I see low volume. I'm like, well, right? And then this happens. And psychologically, buying here at 319 is just so crazy. It's so crazy. I mean, essentially, it's Billy, right? And I didn't mind being Billy-esque on a third day surge because, again, I think these things just straight up from the open. And I didn't think this 5-minute candle was that massive either. So I'm like, okay, like, you know, I just thought it was there, right? Because I was looking for 4. I'm like, okay, 20 cents, a dollar, or 20 cents to 80 cents, right? The risk reward I didn't think was terrible. But psychologically, it's just insane to buy up here and terrible. Because as soon as I buy, it goes down. And it's like, I don't even have to go deep into it. We already know this, right? But it immediately goes down. It's kind of, and I'm just like fighting to stay break even. And then it does this. And I'm like, okay, I'm only a little up. If I got in here, I'm selling here most of my position because this was highs from the previous day. And then if I'm here, it never even fell below my entry. I mean, barely. And I probably would have got out because the market was slow today. And this has high offering rating on Dilution Tracker. And we saw AMPG do an offering after hours. I wouldn't have held this, but I mean, I could have been so patient and I could have been break even or even up if I sold most of my position up here, which I would have for 10%. So I battle with the thing. I'm thinking about this trade all afternoon because I keep on doing this, and I'm not chasing from FOMO per se. I mean, I guess it is FOMO, but it's more of like I'm waiting for that confirmation, and then I like hesitate because I know it's a bad entry, but then I do it anyway because like I believe in the bigger picture. And then it's just a mess. It's obviously just a mess, financially and emotionally. So I'm gripping with this thing of like, okay, do I buy this? Do I buy the low volume perk, right? Do I buy this volume and like take that risk? And the answer is yes, for multiple reasons. There is no scenario. I have 2 examples, right? The biotech play that I was talking about before, this big spike. Now I bought here thinking, okay, but this candle's massive. And then here, there is no scenario where buying a big spike at the open or at the open of after hours makes any sense. It makes 0 sense. Right? It makes 0 sense. It's always going to at least get stuffed. I mean, not always, but the majority of the time. And Roll obviously talks about this all the time, so I'm not going to go too deep into it, but I'm just giving my perspective after going through it multiple times. It's not even the fact that it gets stuffed. It's just so psychologically and terrible. Because like I said, you're just fighting to stay break even up here. Whereas here, I have no emotional anxiety whatsoever at 290. None. None. And then let's break it down, right? So let's just say the worst case scenario happens. You buy this low volume perk and then it dumps at the open, right? Sure, that could happen, right? But let's just say I go to 290 and it falls all the way to 260. Or even right here, actually, like 276. So let's just say it dumps 20 cents at the open. That's what I was risking anyway. I bought at 320, risking 3. And that's not even really a true support level. And then what happens, what's funny, so, I'm afraid that it's going to dump at the open because of low volume, right? But then I buy here at 320, risking 3 when there's more volume, and this will crack hard. So if this cracks most of the time, it's going to crack hard. So it's not going to be like, because there's more volume. So not only am I buying high, I'm then using a support level that is very crowded. And if it does break, it's going to break hard, which is the fear I have buying this low volume at the beginning. Right? So I don't avoid that risk by buying high. I actually almost make it worse. And even if it does fall from the open on low volume, I don't think it's going to be as violent as if it cracks with big volume, right? And it's just like Roland says too, it's like that contrarian thinking where, because even thinking about buying low volume gives me nerves. Just thinking about it. But that's a good sign. That means I'm doing something different than most people, which is I'm buying before anyone gets in, that's all stocks is. Right? You buy Coke 30 years ago, a gajillion years ago at this point, whatever, before anyone else was, right? That's the whole goal, is to be in before anyone else and get the maximum risk reward. And that's another thing. Let's just say I buy here and it does spike to 4. I'm not getting the full return like I could have got it down here. So it's not even better to buy up here on the reward side. All the upside is down here, and the risk isn't as big. Even if this does fall 20 cents from the open on low volume, then it's the same risk as I was risking all the way up here. And this getting stuff and cracked is way more likely than what dumping at the open. And that's kind of the other revelation I have, is like, there's no secret code. Like, you're not going to get it every time. And sometimes this will dump at the open and you'll lose. Sometimes this will do what it did today and spike a little bit and fail. Or sometimes it'll spike and just continue ripping. It doesn't happen the same every time. So you just have to pick the one that's the most financially and emotionally less risky over the long term. And over the long term, it's buying in the low. That's it, right? It's buying in the low. And so that's kind of thoughts on all of this. And I'm not mad about trading this at all, because it was the right idea. If I got in here, I could have made 10%. And it was what was in play. Third day surge. It was what was in play. And I'm not mad about it at all. It's just the execution. And I'm really happy with my month so far. Essentially lost nearly every trade, but I'm in the right places, in the right tickers, but now it's executing. And like I said, I could have made over 100% on ADD. I was in this stock. I just didn't have a broker. And then in my last video on my YouTube channel, I predicted SLXN. It was the one ticker that I said I would buy as far as reverse goes. And then CTNT, I could have made money on this. I don't know if it was CTNT. Some other ticker, morning reversal. I was in it and then got out because my entry was bad. I talked about this on my last video, and then it ran. So that could have been another winner. And then I had my really good trade on AMPG. So I just need to do some tweaking on my execution, and I really, really feel like I'm doing okay. So as far as what's going on in the market right now, it's still quantum. I mean, we saw LAES continue its gains. I almost bought this here after hours for the same thing, but then I bought AMPG instead. LAES has a high offering thing on dilution tracker. So for me, I can't buy any of this. You know, it's so hard for me when I see opportunities from way back here or see other traders in the chat buying it from right here, I can't up here. It just doesn't make any sense. But we saw this hold its gains, which was awesome. And then, so there was Xena. Yeah, Xena. This was another quantum one. This one I'm a little upset that I didn't get in because this is a really nice reversal. Higher low here on the 5-minute chart, 10:15. We have been seeing these late morning reversals, meaning 10. A couple other, I can't name the tickers off my head, but we've seen them. And it's the quantum sector that's been hot. But I think I was tied up in the CMRX. So, and then I think when I saw this big candle, I didn't even consider it because we saw someone in our chat, they were in it here. So it was kind of another thing of like, I'm too late. Like, that's kind of another revelation I had with my biotech play and CMRX this morning was, if this spike happens, you're just too late. There's no other explanation other than people are in this stock beforehand, before this happens. Just like the person in our chat was at this one. For a spike to be this big and this quick, there has to be people in beforehand. And if I'm not in that, I'm too late. The play is gone. The play is over. So I completely kind of disregarded this, but this higher low was really nice. And I may have dabbled, but we haven't seen a lot of reversals like this, but we've seen a couple, especially around the 10 o'clock mark. And quantum's just absolutely on fire. But it was a slow market today. Maybe quantum's overextended, but this was a nice play. So we had Xena and LAES for quantum today. So quantum's still hot and rocking. But then we saw some bottom bouncers. GOEV, Roland put this in the chat. BURU. And there was a third one, but I lost it. I did have MLGO. This was low volume and not really a lot of percent gain here. But I was trying to find a simp during the afternoon when I saw these. And I had this on my list. I actually think I had a couple. Yeah, CRKN, LITM, and then this one. But there was a third one that was different on bigger volume, but I can't remember which one it was. Maybe it's on my scan. I don't know. I was looking at it, but GOEV, I mean, massive volume, almost 1 billion in volume, and then Buru. I've never played bottom bouncers before, so I have no idea how to attack them. I like the concept, but you know, from my observation, it seems like, you know, you just have a stock that's getting dumped on, plummeting for, you know, days, weeks, even months. and then just massive volume comes in, massive volume. And sometimes it'd be a big crack like this, or it could just be, it's just going down, 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 down. Those are just some of my early observations. As far as entry, I don't know. Again, it kind of goes to the thing of like, you know, like, where do you buy, right? So if I'm looking at bottom bouncers tomorrow, it's like, where do I buy, right? Do I buy when it's early volume, or do I wait until that big volume comes in, right? So definitely not going to trade any tomorrow because I never have, but MLGO was the one that I was watching the most, and LITM. But again, like, it did this little double bottom here. You can't buy this. You can't buy this spike. It's too much, and I'm too late. So I don't know how to attack these, but that's what's in play. Quantum and ML and bottom bouncers for sure. But overall today was slow. The scan was pretty slow, and we didn't see many 100% gainers. If we saw Buru here, one. But to end the video, I am swinging FCUF. This is a quantum, kind of like an AI and quantum play. They're in like the computer sector, if you will, but they offer various products. Some are quantum related, some are AI related. And I am swinging this. And the reason why I'm swinging this is because quantum's on fire. And this is one of the very few tickers that's not overextended. Most of the tickers in the sector have been running, right? So RGTI, QUBT, QBTS, QSI. I think that's the majority of them. Is Sound one of them? Yeah, so most of these are overextended. So my goal was to try to find the one that's not. And the reason why I liked this one a lot, one, obviously it's in the sector. I kind of like that it's a little bit of both AI and quantum. I kind of like that a lot. I like the fact that on Dilution Tracker, it's low overall risk. There's very low overhead supply, low offering rating, low overall risk rating, very little overhead supply, like I said. And I just love how this looks on the daily chart, and more so the weekly and the monthly chart, which I'll show you. To me, this just screams gap up. I don't like this, obviously. I couldn't find anything of why this dumped like this. Other than that they presented, I think it's like they presented somewhere around this week. So I don't like, obviously I don't like this in general, but this just, to me, screams a gap up, right? Where it consolidates for a month and then boom. Can't you just picture this kind of gapping up to here? Right? So I just love the way it looks in the daily chart in this sense. And then also the fact that it did have a recent run and that it has ran. I mean, it gapped up from 25 or 19, excuse me, all the way to a 45 high on 316 million volume. So it can move. Obviously it finished red. So and the stock's 25 cents for, it's obviously garbage, but my point is that it can run. And then I just like on the daily chart how it's near lows. It's been consolidating around here for a while. If I pull it up on the weekly chart, you just see here, it's just consolidating. Consolidating. And then on the monthly chart, same thing. It's just consolidating. So, and they're under $1 and they have their compliance due date in March. So I am thinking they need to pump this a little bit, right, to get to $1 or March, right? So this is more of a long-term idea, but it could happen at any time, I think. So I put a good amount of money in this. So we'll see. My risk is super low. I'm using 23 as my risk, but I may kind of extend it to 20, right? And buy. I might buy. I kind of hope it does that. Kind of hope it tests this support level and bounces, because then I'll put in some more. But that's that. And my overall lessons from today are: there's no reason ever to buy a spike like this. There's no reason. There's zero reason to buy a spike like that. It just messes everything up. And that leads to my second thing of buying here at low volume is the best option. It's the best option financially and emotionally long term. And I know Roland says all the time, so it's not new news, but sometimes you just got to go through it yourself to really conceptualize something, to really feel it. Conceptually, obviously, it makes sense, right? But you have to go through. You have to get stung so many. I have to get stung so many times on something for me to be like, okay, yeah, I shouldn't do that anymore, right? And this is my last sting on buying spikes like this. So those are kind of my two overall lessons from today. And then my two lessons from yesterday were biotechs are their own beast, and finding that balance between, okay, I want to get in on low volume, I want to get in on these tickers that could pop, but also want to stick within something that's good risk reward still, and something that's just not like super random, right? And I think the randomness part is covered by playing something that's in play. I feel like it's so important. I've been hounding on it the past couple of videos. The fact, so like if I'm buying this at low volume, it's not random because 3-day surges are in play and it's holding. Even though it's low volume, the price action is holding. So it's not low volume randomness because 3-day surges are in play, right? So that's that. The last thing is we have been seeing reverse splits. And so the couple we saw today were DBVT. This is technically yesterday and today. And then APVO, as well as WHLR. And I think there was a fourth one. Oh, SLXN, the one that I thought of anyway. So I don't see too many similarities right now, other than that there's biotechs, most of them, and that a lot of them are just spiking super quick, like at 4 or 5 a.m. And then you essentially have to cash out in like 15 minutes. So the two that kind of stuck out to me were APLM, biotech, kind of huddling around a whole, 650. I don't remember how many days it is. I don't remember. And the other one was RNAZ. Kind of like this little bounce here off this half number, 650, and again, it's a biotech. So both of the biotechs, they're both a number of days from their reverse split. So those are kind of the two I'm watching, but it's probably, I didn't put them on my list until 8, so it was too late for me to buy them. I probably would have bought RNAZ, honestly. But yeah, that is it. Super long video, but this is really good for me, and I hope it's good for anyone who's listening.